Now, today's topic is on something quite subtle but very impactful in the grand scheme of our lives, in our relationships, in how we present ourselves, in how we interact with people, and in our trauma response. Yes. So it's on boundaries, but I'm not going to be saying, oh, you should have boundaries. Obviously, you should have boundaries. But then I want to talk on something I coined as the elasticity of your tolerance. Hello and welcome to the Busy Becca podcast, where I share tips to help you shape your mindset and reinforce a healthy perspective. A healthy perspective is key, especially when dealing with challenges and trying to stay motivated while, you know, bearing it all. Now, I may not have all the answers, like I always say, but I encourage you to listen to this episode and pick a lesson or two as I dig in. And the reason why I use the word elasticity is because what came to mind was a rubber band, and how it's new, it's very well round and thick and slim, and you have high standards, you have values, you have things you stand for, and you have lines, very clear lines in the sand of things you don't want people to cross over. But then something happens. One time it happens, and like, just this one time. If you try it again, I won't tolerate it. Or you tell someone close to you, like, oh, I can't believe this person did this thing to me, but I just let it go this time. But if they try it again, and I'm sure parents can relate to this thing where you tell children, you did this thing, and if you do it again, if you do it, I will deal with you. But at the core of it, you don't really mean it, but you want them to know that there are lines they shouldn't cross. And in our everyday lives, at work, in relationships, in just general interactions, these things do come up where your boundaries are as clear as they to you, but when you come in contact with another person, you kind of start to waver, either because you struggle with saying no, or because you have developed a soft spot for that person and you now start to make excuses. But there's almost I won't say there's a thin line, there's actually a very thick line between, oh, just this one time, and before you know it, you've lost yourself, or you've lost the essence of that standard of value that you put in place, to the point that when you leave that situation, say it was a relationship and you move to another one, that elasticity has already been developed. So the shock and anger and visceral reaction you would have had if this new person did the same thing, you're now you're less strict about those boundaries, and that's what I want to talk about today. When we come across certain people, or even in family settings, in the work environment, in school, depending on where you are right now in life, there are definitely standards that you have, there are boundaries that you've set, but everybody watching this can relate to a situation where you gave a little leeway. You're like, this one time, I'm not going to get angry, I'm just going to let it go. I don't want to seem too extra, or I'm just being nice to you. So you did this thing, I don't like it, but don't do it again. And there are times when those things happen, and when they initially happen, you're shocked. Like your body almost has a visceral reaction. And so speaking of something bad, you're so shocked and your insides boiling, like, what? You did what? You get angry. There's this initial reaction that is a bit dramatic. I don't know if everyone can relate to it, but I'm just picturing things in my head of things that I was like, what? You said what to me? Maybe I may not have said it out, but in my mind I'm thinking, oh, I can't believe that happened to me. Or you tell someone that, oh, this thing happened, and be like, what? To you? No, you can't take that. No. That whole initial drama happens, and then you give the person that last chance, in quotes, and then they do it again. But then the initial reaction you had, the initial shock you expressed, you don't have that expression, and you're like, I'm just being nice to you, I'm just pitying you, don't do it again. And then they keep doing it over and over and over again, and they start to, that tolerance that you had keeps extending, that patience you had keeps extending. It's almost like a rubber band and just keeps stretching and stretching and stretching. And even though at the core of you, you know you don't like that thing, it goes against your values, it's an overstep of your boundaries, but you just find yourself either giving excuses for the other person, or saying, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Or you speak to people and they kind of convince you that, oh, well, everybody does that. Like, case in point, a very good example, cheating. When your partner cheats on you first time, or before, okay, let's speak before anything like that happens, you're like, no, I can't be with a cheater. Or if she does this, if he does this, I'm not going to take it. There's the whole dramatic thing. And then maybe the first time it's a suspicion. You're not sure. You're just, the crumbs are there, but then the bread is not there. The cookie is not there. But you see the crumbs, they're like, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not what I think. Now you've extended the elasticity of your tolerance just that one time. You've not done the thing you say each time. The conversation comes like, oh, if my partner cheats on me, I'm done. We're over. Well, that's disrespect. The whole thing. And then it happens again. Then you even get to the point where you find out this person does this, and you now start rationalizing, you start processing, like, well, oh, we've been together for so long, or we have these investments together, or we have let's say you're married, you say, oh, we have children, or we've built this life. Oh, but then he didn't do it to my face. Oh, but then she didn't do it, I don't know, she didn't do it to my face. And then you're just expanding that tolerance, that you have. Maybe fast forward a little time comes and you're like, I'm done, I'm not doing this thing again, and you move on. So I'm giving this specific example of cheating. You leave the person, you move on, you're now with someone else. Now two things are possible. One, either the elasticity of your tolerance shrinks, and the sight or the thought of the person even being unfaithful to you just makes you be like, no, I'm done, you walk away. Or you are not as triggered as you were in the previous relationship, where you're like, well, he's doing this thing, but in this other area he's better. Or he's doing this thing, but he's not so bad, he's more attentive to me, or he's more discreet. And you now start making excuses for yourself, not for the other person. Start making excuses for yourself to bear those things, but it still hurts you on the inside. Now, this is a very big example of cheating, but it's not just that. So even behavioral patterns. Let's go to another extreme: violence. So you're with someone, or a friend, a family member, maybe not, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, and the first time, they shout on you and you're in so much shock, like your face goes red, because you're like, what? Did you speak to me that way? And there's this whole thing, you get angry, you stop speaking to the person, they come, they beg you, oh, I won't do it again, I apologize, yeah. And the next time they do it, now that initial shock or confusion you had, it starts to depreciate, it lessens, you get more used to it, you don't like it, you're not pleased with it, you wish it was different, but you are less reactive than the first time. Now you're extending the elasticity of your tolerance, you're extending the elasticity of your patience, you're extending the bandwidth of your standards, you're bringing your wall down when it comes to those boundaries. And the more times it happens, the less reactive you are. Things happen, people do things that you ordinarily wouldn't tolerate, you ordinarily wouldn't stand for, and you ordinarily would be judgmental of, but you're like, it's just this one time, it's not really who I am, or it's just this one time, and I'll let it go. I didn't want to make a big fuss, I didn't want to be dramatic about it, I didn't want to do too much, start making excuses for that one time. But then you slowly develop the appetite to tolerating those things, but you don't know it yet. till it happens 2 times and 3 times and 4 times, and then the pattern is created where you're somewhat of a pushover in that regard. So not in other things you're very clear, no, you can't do that. But in certain areas you're like, you just find yourself losing hold of those standards and those values. And I'm not saying this to be judgmental or for you to be overly critical of yourself. We're human and these things happen. But you now start to explain it away, give excuses for the other person. Well, oh, based on where they're coming from, they don't know to do better. I'm trying to teach them how. They're just giving excuses so you can bear the inconvenience of that thing. Now, we're heading somewhere. Now, the thing is, once you start to tolerate these things or allow these things to happen, that rubber band or the elastic band you had that was so tight now starts to stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, and it doesn't go back because it's losing its elasticity, it's stretching out and becoming more loose to the point that, say for some reason you leave that situation with that person and end up in another situation, you can't pretend to be appalled by that person doing the same thing the other person did and just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Let me in life know wasn't something that I said very often or very easily. One, because I was still trying to understand myself, and two, I'm the last born by a number of years, so I didn't have the luxury of setting boundaries and be like, no, I don't like this thing, you can't do this thing. But anyway, so as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at saying no. But in the period where I struggled with saying no and setting clear boundaries, my solution was to not put myself in situations where I had to say no. So I shielded myself. So first and foremost, I'm not really a touchy-feely type of person. I'm not comfortable with people touching shoulders, hugging, and all those plenty things. It's nothing weird. There's really no story behind why. It's just not my thing. Well, except in certain circumstances, but generally, it's not my thing. I'm not the kind of person that you just walk up to, hold my hand, or yeah. So to avoid this, I try to stay away from like being in close proximity to people where default setting for them would be to maybe grab my shoulder, hold my hand. There was always space between me and people, and then I led by example. So I'm not the kind of person who see you, jump on you, hug you, hold you. No, because tomorrow I don't want you to feel like, oh, you can do that, because obviously if I do that, then I'm opening myself up for it to be done to me. So I don't roll like that. When I struggled to say no, I just didn't put myself in situations that required me to stand up for myself and speak up and say, oh no, I don't like this thing, or don't do this thing. I just wouldn't be in that space. And that's something you can do if you struggle to be assertive enough to say, no, I do not like this, and this is a clear-cut boundary that you cannot cross. Now, getting older, understanding myself, there are certain things people don't like I can tolerate. There are certain things that are still a no for me that other people are fine with, but I'm able to say, oh, I don't really appreciate that, in a very nice and polite way. You don't have to be rude about it, but learn that. So I'm just using myself as an example. Now back to topic of today, the elasticity. So I want you to really sit back and think about it. What are the things that certain people do to you that under normal circumstances you wouldn't let them do it? You wouldn't be comfortable with them doing it. And just reflect on those things and ask yourself, what can I do to fix it? I may already be in this situation. Say you're married, you've been married for 5, 6, 7, 10 years or more, and there's certain things you really do not like, but then your partner does it. Obviously, you're not going to be walking away from that just because of those things. But there are ways for you to process and really dig deep. First of all, understand why that boundary is there. Why is it important to you that people act in this way or do not act in that way. Understand why it's important to you. This will help you explain it to the other person or the other people and say, oh, this thing that you do, I don't really like it, and this is why, based on this. Maybe this happened, that happened, or just your internal wiring. That's one. So understand why you have those boundaries, why you have those values, why you hold those values dear to you. And two, find out the values or understand the values that have been overstepped, or those things that you've built a tolerance for that you really do not appreciate or you do not like. Understand it first in a kind way. Don't be judgmental, don't beat yourself up. We're all human. So even as I speak to you, there are certain things I generally wouldn't like, but then I allow sometimes. But at the core of me, I recalibrate every now and again. I do some introspection and try to see, okay, this thing that I'm letting happen, do I really dislike it, or have I been societally wired to say, oh, this thing happen, when this has happened, you should react this way, or is it something that's fundamental to me? So do a little self-assessment first and foremost. Say, don't beat yourself up, and I don't want you to say, after doing your self-assessment, I don't want you to say, oh, I should have known better, oh, why would I allow this? No. We are approaching this from a place of non-judgment. We're being kind to ourselves. We're going to say, oh, I realize that I have developed an appetite for this thing, which has led to these patterns being created in my life. And on the topic of patterns, let me just say this. So once you have extended yourself for one person, the likelihood of you moving to a different situation and not fixing the elasticity of your tolerance, or not recalibrating your mind on what your standards are or your values or the things that are important to you are, you will just carry the same baggage to point B and still extend yourself in the same ways. And then you keep asking yourself, oh, why do people treat me this way? Or what's it about me that makes people do this to me? It's because you haven't worked on yourself and how tolerant you are of things you will not stand. You need to work on yourself, and work on yourself with kindness, because we're human. We make mistakes. We overextend ourselves for the sake of peace, for the sake of love, and we hope that other people will see us making an effort. But the human nature is selfish. People will keep stepping on your toes till you say, ow, it hurts, please get off my toes. So that is why I feel this is really important. So when you've come to realize, oh, how have I overextended myself to tolerate other people's crap, then you start thinking of, what can I do moving forward to stop this from happening? Do I need to walk away from that situation, which is the extreme, if I'm being very honest, or do I need to address it head on and stand for what I believe in? There should be consequences to people overstepping your boundaries. So they may be in action, in words, taking away things, implementing some things. Just process it. So it's different for every different situation, and it's different for people, and that's why I don't want to give a specific example, so you don't maybe take this example and play it out in the wrong scenario. But I want you to do some self-inspection and find out those areas where you become a bit lax with your rules, you become a bit lax with your standards and what you take or do not take from other people. And in the same vein, I want you to reach out to people and say, oh, are there things I do that you do not appreciate, and how can I make it better for you? In conclusion, I hope this episode resonated with you, and if you feel it's going to be helpful to someone, please share it with that person and encourage them to listen to it from beginning to the very end. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm really happy and thankful for the support all around. Thank you for the encouragement and the kind words, because sometimes I'm like, I may be doing a bit much, but not all the time, very few times. So thank you, and looking forward to you listening to the next episode. If you missed previous episodes, please go back in time, either on Spotify or on YouTube, and just listen and watch where necessary. Leave a comment, click the notification button so that when a is it tab or button, when a new episode comes out, you're informed and you listen to it first before anybody else. So thank you, and have a lovely week ahead. God bless you.